If you're watching this video, I'm sure you already know, it is hard to learn how to mix your music, but I want to encourage you that it is very much worth it. One of the most common questions that I get is, should I even bother learning to mix my music, or should I just hire it out? It seems like something that's going to take me forever to learn. It's going to take a lot of effort when I could just hire someone else to do it. And I want to give you 3 reasons that even if you're going to hire someone else to do it, you should be learning to mix your own music. And if you're planning to learn to mix your own music and you're going to mix your own music, I want to affirm you with these 3 reasons. The first reason you may or may not have thought of, but the other 2 reasons, very likely you've never thought of. So stick with me. I think it's really going to be encouraging to you that this time and energy you're putting into this is worth it. But before we get into it, if you're struggling to get a mix that you're happy with, I want to give you something. I put together a completely free 6-step checklist that just goes through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how to do them. It's free from the link in the description below, so be sure to pick it up. It's really going to help you out. But let's go and get into it, starting with number 1, which is that it will save you a ton of money. This is the one that you probably already thought about, but just to give you some perspective, on the low end of the spectrum, you would be spending probably $150 per mix, and this is the low end. I personally probably wouldn't hire anyone who's going to charge you less than that per mix. It's probably really not worth your investment, but $150 on the low end. Most mix engineers that are really great at what they do are in that like $300 to $500 per song range. I personally charge $400 when I'm taking clients. I'm not currently taking any clients, but that is a range that you can get really excellent results. About $300 to $500, a lot of money. But if you really want to hire like a Grammy-nominated mix engineer, then it's more like $700 to $2,000 per song. So that's a lot of money to invest per song. Every time you're working on a song, you have to invest that money. Compared to being able to save that money if you want to keep it in your pocket, or invest it in new gear if you want a new guitar or a new microphone or something that's going to help you create more, get better results, or just have more gear because you like gear. Valid if you like it and it makes you happy. And third, if you want to promote your music, if you are spending less on the mixing or spending none on the mixing, then it's going to help you promote your music. You have a little bit of budget to spend there, but you should only do that if you have a great mix that's worth promoting. Okay, so that's reason number 1. It's going to save you money, and that's a totally valid reason enough to spend all this time and energy to learn mixing. But you probably already thought about that. So let's talk about reason number 2, and that's that it's going to make you a better recording engineer and producer. If you don't know what goes into the mixing process, then you don't know exactly what you need to be recording to get a pro level, great sounding final result. But if you've gone through the mixing process and you realize these guitars are just always a little bit too muddy, they're a little tubby in like that 300-ish hertz range on the EQ, maybe I just need to try to get them a little bit brighter in the recording phase. The better recordings you get, the better final result you get. Or if you're thinking, man, I really want this chorus to just have a little extra punch, I'm going to track one more guitar to have in the center of this mix, just in the choruses. If you are thinking through those things that you come across as you're mixing, as you're actually going through the mixing process, not just learning about what goes into a mix, but actually trying to apply it yourself, you'll get better results. And that recording and producing zone, that getting the right tones, getting the best tones possible, and that recording the right tracks to get you the best sound possible, how you arrange it, how you have certain elements come in here and leave there, and how many vocal doubles do you want to record, how many harmonies do you want to record, and how are you going to pan them, like as I'm recording this guitar, what's going to be in the other ear, thinking about those things that are really crucial for the end result. If you aren't mixing your own music, you don't necessarily know what all goes into that. And at the end of the day, whether you mix yourself or you hire someone to mix, mixing is about mixing your music, not fixing your music. So if you're hiring someone to mix, you're hiring them to mix your music, not fix your music. The best engineer in the world, the best mixing engineer in the world, cannot make poorly recorded tracks and a poor arrangement sound amazing. They just can't. Maybe they can make it sound a little bit better, but they can't make it sound amazing. So you have to get better as a recording engineer and as a producer to make your tracks engaging and sound as good as possible if you want to get the best results possible. Speaking of, reason number 3 is that you're going to get a better final mix. And this is for 2 main reasons. So if you're mixing your own music, it's pretty obvious. The more you learn about mixing, the more you practice mixing, the better results you're going to get. But the sweet spot in learning mixing and in getting a better mix out of an engineer is really in the mix revisions. So you've done a mix and now you're thinking, okay, how do I get this from where it currently sounds to that one step better? How do I improve it just a little bit? So when you finish your mix and you take it out to your car and you think, okay, it sounds pretty good, but it's a little bit, there's too much bass, it's a little muddy down there, and the vocals aren't cutting through, I need to bring them up just a little bit, whatever. You get specific mix notes, and you make specific mix notes. Those mix revisions, when you take them and apply them, is how you really start getting after that sound that you're looking for. And if you're mixing your music yourself, you're going to go through several iterations over time. You'll do less and less mix revisions. A lot of mixes the first mix is what we end up going with, or maybe a couple little tweaks, but it's not like transforming from a bad mix to a good mix. But when you're starting out, you might have a mix that you're really not happy with at first, but you go through the mix revision process and you get better and better, and articulating those things will also help you when you're working with a hired engineer. So if you hire someone to mix your music, they might have the skill set to give you a technically great sounding mix. But there's a very personal nature to what we want our music to sound like. There is a subjective nature to mixing. And if you can't articulate what it is you want, it can be really hard to get the result from them. If you don't know how to, if you don't really understand what all goes into a mix, being able to articulate, hey, this sounds great, but it's a little underwater. That's feedback I got once. It's like, I don't really know what you mean by underwater. Are you saying it's a little too dark? Is there not enough high end? Are you saying it's a little too reverby? Is there too much, like, do I need to turn down the reverbs or try a different reverb? I didn't know what they meant. I had to go back and forth with an artist for 10, 15 minutes on the phone, just kind of trying to pick apart their brain to figure out what they were hearing. Whereas if they had learned how to mix, they could have given me very specific feedback like, hey, it sounds great, but I think it just needs a little bit more presence around 3K, or a little bit more brightness, and, a little lower mix of the reverb. And then, okay, I get it. Very clear for me to do that exact revision for you, right? So the better you understand mixing, the better you can articulate mix revisions, the better final result you're going to get. I'm not saying you should micromanage someone that you hire, a pro engineer that you hire. A lot of times they know a lot of stuff and they don't want to be micromanaged. But when you're trying to figure out when you're working with a new engineer, you're trying to really articulate the sound that you're going after, mix revisions are to be expected. Very rarely, the first mix that I do with a client the very first time has 0 revisions, just because I'm trying to get an exact sense of what it is they're going for. But another reason that learning to mix can really help you get a better final mix, even when you're working with an engineer, is what's called a reference mix. So if you're going to hire someone to mix your music and you want to not go back with them 100 times on revisions, something that can really help with that is a reference mix. This is where you mix the song and say, hey, here's a mix that I did of the song. I know it could be better, but there's things I like about it. I like the effects in the verse, and I like, the overall feel in the chorus, and I like the tightness in the bridge, whatever. You can articulate that, and now as a mix engineer, I can listen to that and I can say, okay, I hear what they're going for here. I'm going to emulate that in my mix, but then apply my years of expertise to the mix that I'm doing. But that reference mix can be invaluable. In pro sessions, the way it often works is you'll have an artist and an engineer and a producer all working in the studio to get a sound that they're happy with. And then they'll do a reference mix of it, and they'll send it with the multi-tracks to the mix engineer, who they're paying $2,000 to do the mix for them. And they will have the reference mix as their starting point and kind of guide track as they're going through the mixing process to make sure they're close to what the artist wants. So reference mixes are really, really helpful if you're hiring someone else to mix your music. But if you're mixing your own music, you don't even have to worry about that. You're just going through the mix revisions, and those revisions are going to help you get that better final product. The better you understand the mixing process, the easier it's going to be for you to go through mix revisions. Now, again, if you're struggling to get a mix that you're happy with, be sure to get my 6-step checklist to a pro mix from the link in the description below. But really quick, a recap. Number 1, it's going to save you a ton of money, anywhere from $150 to $2,000 per song, more likely like $300 to $500 per song, but still a lot of money every single song that you want to put out. Second reason, it's going to make you a better engineer and producer, so you're going to get a better final result because you got better recorded tracks, because you arranged them and produced it in a way that was more engaging and allowed for a big full production. And then finally, third, it's going to get you a better final result through the mix revisions and through any sort of reference mix if you're working with a hired mix engineer. I have nothing against hiring mix engineers. I've done it before. I think it's a totally valid way to get a better level than you can currently achieve, but you should always be learning what you're getting from them. And eventually what happened with me, I mixed my music and then I hired someone else to do it until I could mix a song as well as them. And then I hired someone else to do it. And then now I'm just mixing my own music, and I'm very happy with the results that I get, and I mix for clients and all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing wrong with hiring people to mix your music, but it's still worth bothering to learn how to mix your music. It's going to make everything better at the end of the day. Okay, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever thought about hiring someone else to mix your music? Let me know in the comments below. If this video was helpful, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time.